Greetings. Welcome to Learning Coding with me. This week I learned arrays and array lists and loops and for loops and while loops and do loops, fruit loops, and loop-de-loops. Safe to say Java is getting pretty hard and I have to spend more time learning how this stuff works before I can make a video about it. That's where I've been. But hopefully it's all going to catch on and I'll get it and then I can move on from Java. So yeah, today we're going to do for loop in IntelliJ and we're going to do like a coding question. We're going to solve it. And the goal is to, by the end of this, make a Sodoku solver. So, and I think the loops will actually come in handy for that and arrays for sure. So this is good knowledge that we're accumulating right now. And then once we complete Java 101, we can move on to something more web oriented because that's what I want to do. Also life update. I did get a new job for a branding agency. I'm going to be a freelance designer for them. And they actually asked me when I went in for my meeting with them that they were like, hey, like, do you know how to code at all? And I was like, no, but I'm learning. So now our goal actually kind of matters now. So cheers to that. Let's keep it going. Shout out Forrest, music guy. And visit this website. We are coding today a for loop that will print all the numbers from 1 to 100 and it will pick out which ones are divisible by 3 and divisible by 5. And if you don't know what divisible means, go back to 3rd grade math class. It basically means can it be divided with no remainders? Which there is something in Java called a modulo that calculates that. So we're going to be using that today. Now I'm going to pass you off to my color and let's get started. So we have an integer right here. Please subscribe. But we're going to just jump right into a for loop. And this took me a while to fully understand these. Tip, if you are learning online, check out other people's videos. Don't just I've been following this guy named Peach, but he just wasn't explaining it well enough for my brain. So find another person to explain it, and it gives you a better perspective. So for instance, for for loops, you need to give it an integer. And I don't know if you need to. For the sake of this, we're going to give it an integer. And int equals int I. And why do we use I? I stands for index. And we're going to start at 0, semicolon. I. Now, the second part is called the limiter. So this tells the for loop when to stop. Because if you didn't have that, it will, or if your what are these called? Greater than, less than sign is in the opposite, opposite of what it should be. This will run forever, and you actually have to stop it because it will infinitely run. So we're going to do I is less than or equal to, and I'll tell you why I did equal to in a moment, semicolon. And then this last part is called the increment operator. And this basically tells the loop which direction to go because it doesn't know unless you tell it. So when I use the plus plus, it's going to increment it by 1. each time. You can change this to something else. You need to use the increment operators, plus, plus, minus, minus, one of those. Let's print this out. It should print out all the numbers from 1 to 100. And we've already, okay. Goddamn curly braces. And it printed nothing. And here's why. I see I've already made a mistake. This I had it greater than. I literally talked about this and then I made the mistake. That's how you learn, folks. I is less than or equal to 100. So if your sign is reversed, it won't do anything because it doesn't know what to do. But yeah, the limiter will keep it from just infinitely running. There we go. Okay, cool. So 0 to 100. And if I didn't do equal to, it would do 0 to 99. So I wanted the full experience there. Okay. So now that we have our list of numbers, now let's parse through them and see which ones are divisible by 3 and which ones are divisible by 5. I believe this is someone said this is like an interview question if you're like applying for a coding position somewhere, which is helpful to know this if you're trying to do that. Okay, so let's go. We're gonna do an if statement. So we're gonna say if it's divisible by 3, print this with it. If it's divisible by 5, print this with it. If it's divisible by both, print this. And I think on the interview question it's called like the buzzkill or something. But we're gonna do something a little different. Okay. If parentheses I, and I, the index, so this is like what is being counted in the list. So I is going to change with this for loop metric. If I modulo, this is basically division, but with a remainder. So if I modulo 3 and equals to 0, now I use double equals here because single equals in Java is like assigning a value. So you're saying I is 0, okay? Let's actually, since 0 isn't a good number to start with, we're gonna do I is 1. Now, double equals just means equals to, but you can't use one equal because Java's gonna think you're assigning it. So whenever you're using, like, you're making like an argument, like a Boolean in like an if statement, you have to use the double equal sign. Or like up here, you have to do equal greater than. You have to use 2 of them. Okay. So we're gonna start with this, curly brace, and we're gonna throw an else in there. Okay, wait, hold on. The else actually, I almost fucked up there. It needs to be after the if curly brace. The if else's are separated by curly braces. We're just gonna print out I. And we're going to mute this line of code so that we don't just have a zillion fucking numbers. Cool. Oh shit, okay, wait, hold on. I didn't tell it to do anything if it's divisible by 3. So let's say if it's divisible by 3, we're gonna print I plus D's. Cool, please work. Cool, let's add a space there for OCD brain. Cool, so now if it's divisible by 3, if you look down here in the console, all of those are gonna say D's next to it. And because of the order of the way it reads code, if you do this first and then have it print all the I's, it's not gonna give you duplicate numbers. So we wouldn't want it to say 1, 2, 3, and then 3 D's. We want it like this. So this, the order of this matters, and this is why I'm going to start with our biggest one, which is checking to see if it's divisible by 3 and 5. So we're gonna do and, remember we're doing doubles because we're making like a Boolean argument. So we're going to check if I is also modulo 5 equals 0. Now it's going to get kind of messy, but like you can have two of these in here. I'm pretty sure without separating them with like parentheses and stuff. Cool, okay. So now it'll only put D's next to numbers that are both divisible by 3 and 5. So 30 divided by 5 is 6, divided by 3 is 10. Let's do this again. Let's do another. We're going to make this else into an else if so that we can ask it more questions. Else if. Oh, shit, hold on. Else if. I got myself fucked up on braces and parentheses. It's so easy to do in Java to just botch the parentheses and curly braces. Okay. Else if I modulo only 3. So this is 3 and 5. We'll start with 5. Only 5 equals 0. After the curly brace, we're going to say I plus spacebar nuts. And we'll change this to, we'll do that later. Hold on. Okay. And let's run another else if. I modulo 3 equals 0. There's so many. And I guarantee at the end of this, I'm gonna have to add a new one or something. And then else. And this is to cap off if, else if, else if, else, and we're just gonna have it print I. That way. And you want to do that last so that you don't get duplicate numbers down here. So else if it's modulo 3, let's have it, clean this up. Let's have it print. If it's 3, we'll say D's. I plus D's. If it's 5, we'll say nuts. And then if it's 3 and 5, we'll do both. D's nuts. Okay. All right, let's check it out. This is the moment of truth. So what have we done here before we run the print? We have all the numbers from 1 to 100 for this for loop. And we're asking a question if the number being pulled is divisible by 3 and divisible by 5, print D's nuts. And I did this one first because if you misorder this, it's just gonna like, the way it reads it, it's gonna like stop and say like, oh, this one's divisible by 3, D's, but it's not gonna say D's nuts. So you wanna like mindfully order it. I can't articulate it in the way I want to, but the order matters. So start with your most complex ones first and then go down to the simplest one where it's just printing the numbers. Because it's going to just ask stuff and then it breaks. Like naturally it's gonna break. So if it reaches one that's like 15, it's gonna say D's nuts and then it's gonna break. That way it doesn't go through and say D's nuts, but also nuts and D's. So that's why you need to order it because it's gonna naturally break. Let's see here, should work. Okay, 1, 2, 3 D's, 4, 5 nuts, 6 D's, perfect. And if we get to 15, it says D's nuts, and it should, all the numbers that, yep, okay, so this worked. That was my lesson on for loops and checking the numbers. I wanna do another thing. I still have to learn it, how to like call the numbers. So like if you input a number, it tells you if it's divisible by 3 and 5. Maybe I'll do that next time, but thanks for watching.